They have a pulse. Kansas wins big on the road. Is Floribadunga KU's best player? Is this going to be his only year in Kansas?
You are Locked On Jayhawks, your daily podcast on the Kansas Jayhawks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on? Derek Johnson here. This is Locked On Jayhawks. Thanks for making it your first listen every day. Thank you to the everydayers catching each and every show, and I hope you're weathering the storm right now. You can find our show anywhere you get your podcasts, including on our YouTube page. And we're going to, on today's episode of Locked On Jayhawks, be discussing Floribadunga, who I think you can make a real case that he is KU's best player. Obviously, the role won't always be there to play as much or more than other players, but I don't know. I think we've seen a lot at this point. And then also you won on the road for the first time in a while, and you walloped UCF in the process. It wasn't just a close win on the road. You just absolutely decimated them in that, and that you showed a lot of life, and it was very impressive. So we'll get to that. We'll get to the game awards, and we'll also finish up with what's next for KU. First, this episode of the show is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase with Game Time. Kansas 99, UCF 48. Everything worked for you in this game. It was obviously when you win by that much, there's going to be a lot of things that go right for you, which they certainly did. Like I think the number that sums it up the most to me, Kansas won points in the paint 62-10. That is the largest sum in that category I think I've ever seen in a game. And Hunter Dickinson was a big reason why. He had 27 points, and it felt like he didn't even play like the second half, basically. I mean, he had 6 in the second half, but that was in 8 minutes. So, like, I mean, he could have had 40 if they wanted him to. But in a game where Hunter Dickinson was really good, I mean, Hunter was fantastic in this game. 27 points, 12 of 17, 9 rebounds in just 23 minutes of action. That's insane efficiency. I come away from this game thinking that Floribadunga was the best player on the court, and that Floribadunga is Kansas's best player. Now, you know, it's one of those weird things where it's like best player, but he's going to be your backup center. It's like, how does that work, right? And it's just like, it doesn't make sense, but it sort of just is to me. He played 21 minutes. He had 12 points. He was 6 of 8. He had 5 rebounds, and he had a billion blocks, basically, give or take. He was credited with 6 blocks. I mean, you could have convinced me he had 9 or 10. I don't even know. But it's just like with Flory, he changes the game when he is out there. He is such an elite defender, right? And so with Hunter, you have this elite offensive weapon. You have this elite rebounder in Hunter Dickinson, who in certain matchups is a good defender because he's big. Like in this matchup, he was good defensively because they had another 7-2 big guy, so you can match up with that. But in other matchups, like, you know, you look to what West Virginia did, he's not going to be the best defender there. And with Flory, he's not nearly the offensive weapon that Hunter is. He doesn't have the moves around the post, and he's still developing that stuff right now as a young player. But defensively, he changes the game, right? I think Hunter is probably your best offensive player. I guess you could argue Zeke Mayo as well, but I think consistently it would probably be Hunter Dickinson. I think on the defensive end of the court, to me, it's not even a question. And like, you have a player on your team in DeJuan Harris who won Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year 2 years ago. And yet I think Flory is by far your best defensive player. Maybe not by far. Maybe that's a little overside. Like KJ is a good defender too, right? But I think it's Flory. And when you look at the impact that a shot blocking center can have, it impacts every other position on the court, right? If you're a really good defender as a point guard, that's great and it's very helpful. And certainly, you know, it's a good thing to have. But it doesn't necessarily make life easier on on your wing. You know what I mean? Like guarding the other wing. If you're a good shot blocking center that is coming over and help defense, it makes all the other players better defenders, right? They can go for more steals. They can cheat on things. They can know in the back of their mind, I've got that guy to erase things on the inside. But it's also the ability of Flory to switch to, I mean, he's getting guarded. This happened in the West Virginia game too, but it happened in this one too, where he's like switching onto a guard and he's staying with him. He's staying in front of him. And it is unbelievable the way that he changes the game on the defensive end of the court. And so I really do think that Flory is the best player on this team. And I don't know, maybe this is like small sample size. You're talking about really one good half of play against West Virginia and then a good game here. But it feels like it just feels like he's getting better as the season goes on too with young players. And I look to, I don't know. We'll get into that one sequence again where he had like the block and the dunk, but like there are things happening in this game where I started to go, because really all along to this point, I've thought, okay, Flory's a good player, but also he's a 6'9" center, even though the wingspan is, which I guess matters more, is off the charts, but he doesn't really shoot it. Like, is he really going to be able to be a first round draft pick or something if he goes off to the NBA this year? And watching today, if that continues, where he is that much of a game wrecker, a game changer on the defensive end of the court with his blocking ability, his ability to switch and guard other players, and ability to rebound and dunk the basketball, yeah, he's probably a first-round pick. And the question becomes, is this going to be your only year of Flory? Now, again, that's it's really 1.5 games we're talking about here. But if that continues, right? I mean, we saw small sample size. It was really for Johnny Furphy. He went off in like January to mid-February, and that was enough for him to go off to the NBA. And with Flory, he had higher prospect pedigree coming in. Now, the thing with Flory that he has going for him is that next year with Hunter Dickinson gone, he can be the star of the show, right? And like, what does that look like? What does that do for boosting your draft stock? And I don't mean to turn this into a Floribadunga, draft episode or something like that. But point being, like, I think really for the first time this season, it has really started to cross my mind, what if this is his only year in Lawrence? Because the rapid ascension we are seeing is incredible. But for now, enjoy what you can. You hope you get another year out of him, but just enjoy it while you can, because that dude is so fun to watch, and he was absolutely incredible today, as was really all of Kansas. And it is starting to remind me a little bit of that UConn team a couple years ago. Not necessarily the whole team. I just mean in terms of the big men. If you remember the UConn team who won the title 2 years ago, so their first title, they had Adama Sanogo, who was your classic college big, doesn't end up getting drafted into the NBA afterwards, but he was the Final Four MLB, had good production, was a good scorer on the inside. But the backup center, Donovan Clingan, was the guy who was probably the better center. I mean, we saw what Clingan did last year when he got to be the starter, and we saw how high Clingan went in the draft and stuff like that. And that's what it's starting to feel like you have the ability to do here now with Hunter and Flory in a very real way. And that was great to see. But yeah, I mean, this was just, I think, really nice to see, because obviously Kansas wins this game big. And it would have been the one thing, it would have been, you win a game like this big, you're going to be happy with it no matter what. But if you would have won this game big because you just got bonkers hot from three and they couldn't make a three, I think that's a little bit different of a feeling than how this one went. Where, like, yes, you did shoot threes really well. Kansas was 9 of 23. That's 39%. They didn't shoot threes great. They were 23%, 7 of 30. But, like, this game to me was mostly about aggressiveness. And that was a big question we had, right? Was how aggressive can this team be, right? Why are they not better crashing the glass and getting offensive rebounds? Are they going to come out motivated? Right. The last time we saw them lose at Creighton, the next game at Missouri, they did not. They came out flat. Right. In the first half of the West Virginia game, you came out flat. And that was a big question coming into this one. And I mean, you held UCF to 21%. Yes, UCF probably missed some more shots than they're used to, but like Kansas was playing really good defense. A lot of those were very well contested. You forced 4 more turnovers. You led 18-3 in points off turnovers. That's where the aggressiveness paid off. The rebounding battle, not even close, 63-32. Now, obviously, they missed way more shots, so it's going to be easier for you to grab rebounds. But Kansas grabbed 22 offensive rebounds. Kansas, in a game where they missed 41 shots, grabbed 22 offensive rebounds. So more than half the time they missed their shot, they got the offensive rebound. That is ultimate aggressiveness. And for a team who has Hunter Dickinson, who's gigantic, Floribadunga, who is just this unbelievable athlete, KJ Adams, who, has never consistently been a great rebounder for Kansas, but has always felt like he should have the potential to be a better rebounder, because I know the wingspan isn't great for him, and he's technically an undersized center, but like Jalen Wilson didn't have a great wingspan, and he was a great rebounder. And this is what you're expecting from KJ. He had 7 points. He had 9 rebounds. That's going to work every time, right? So you see the aggressiveness in those areas. You see the aggressiveness in the points in the paint, what I mentioned earlier, 62-10, outscoring them in points in the paint. You see the aggressiveness on defense. You don't just have to be the aggressor on the glass and on the offensive end. You can do it on defense, and they did it with 12 blocks in this game. And then beyond that, not only were they aggressive, having 30 assists to 10 turnovers, the finesse part of the game and the three-point shooting, that's why you win by 51 points. You were ultra aggressive. You played great defense. You just mastered really everything in this game. And I think it was really impressive, the overall performance for KU. Does this absolve them from, being a team who all of a sudden I trust on the road now? Like, they're still 4-10. over last season and this season on the road. So I'm not just going to completely absolve them and be like, okay, well, now they're fine. The road issues are fixed and they're going to win out, 50% of the rest of the road game. No, not quite to there, but it's a good first step. It's a great first step forward to being better there and to being on that path. So that was certainly positive. And in a weird way too, a game where Zeke Mayo only has 6 points on 3 of 10 shooting, it makes you feel even better that you scored 99 points because it wasn't just about Zeke Mayo being bonkers hot. And there's going to be nights where Zeke's hitting him. There's going to be nights where he's not. And so you showed that you can do it in other ways. Obviously, Rylan Griffin going off. That was good to see. 14 points, 4 of 4 from 3. That shot looked pure from him. You did get double digits from AJ Storr, which was good, 11 points, though I don't really know what to fully make of that because it felt like a lot of that was in garbage time at the end of the game. And it definitely seemed like Bill Self was ready to kind of move past him a little more in the rotation. And obviously we saw Shaq Moore start the game, and I thought Shaq Moore was good for Kansas. He had 6 points, 6 assists, 3 rebounds, 20 minutes of play. Just gives him another ball handler. And it feels like, that's what Bill Self is saying I want to do at this point more. I want to play more 3-guard lineups and more 2-big lineups with the 3 guards. And, if you're just looking at the sample size of the second half against West Virginia and then this game against UCF, it's been a pretty darn good 60 minutes of basketball for KU. All right, let's get to our game awards next. I imagine we're going to hear more about Floribadunga and Hunter Dickinson. This is Locked on Jayhawks. And our episode of the show is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. From big upsets to game-winning drives, the NFL playoffs are better with FanDuel because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. The FanDuel app gives you everything you need for live bets, same-game parlays, and so much more. You can get in on the Chiefs to win the Super Bowl with a future bet. You can get in if you're fully bought back in on KU to win the Big 12. They're not the favorite right now on FanDuel because of that opening season loss, and you can get them at plus odds right now. So just visit FanDuel.com to join today. Get started with $200 in bonus bets. That is FanDuel.com. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL and the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you for making Locked On Jayhawks your first listen every day. Thank you to Everydayers catching each and every show. You can make Locked On College Basketball your second listen every day, or Locked On College Football, get you ready for the college football playoff semifinals. All right, our game trophies for this one. We're going to go with best moment of the game. I mean, the whole game itself was awesome. There were so many great highlight plays and moments, but to me, it's not even a debate what the best moment was. It was that play, second half, Floribadunga blocks what was like an elbow jump shot, runs up to the ball, shows his speed, gets to the ball, dribbles, then does I don't know if you'd call it like a Euro step to get in and dunks the basketball. That was an unbelievable display of everything of why I think Floribadunga is this team's at least most talented player and their best player. And I mentioned this on Twitter, but there was a moment early in Joel Embiid's career at Kansas. Maybe it was halfway through. Maybe it was Iowa State in January. I don't even know. He pulled out the dream shake. And, in itself, a big man doing a dream shake, it happens. You know what I mean? But for Joel Embiid, who was a relatively raw basketball player at that point in time, I don't think he was playing basketball for more than a handful of years before Kansas. And to see the ascension he went on, and then you have a player who is more raw doing something like that and looking really good doing it. It was this moment of, okay, this guy's special. They have something real here that this ascension this player is having. You could see the superstardom with Joel Embiid. And I don't mean to say Floribadunga is Joel Embiid and that he's going to be a future NBA MVP and all this sort of stuff. Very different games. I think with Joel, you saw a little bit more maybe scoring potential possibly and that sort of thing. But I think from the defensive end, it is very special what Flory brings to the table. And that play, that sequence, I guess you would say for me, was kind of that realization of, you knew Floribadunga was a high-level recruit and prospect, and I thought he's played well up to this point regardless. But, there's a difference between doing those things and being listed as a high, ranking recruit or NBA draft prospect and doing – playing well. There's a difference from that and doing something that makes people's jaws drop, right? And you don't get to see that every day. And that was a moment that made your jaw drop. And that was a moment for me where I was like, okay, is this guy going to be around more than a year in Lawrence? Is this a guy who is your best player on the team? Is this a guy who can do things that nobody else on the team can do? And, it was just a moment to realize like how special he can be and how quickly he is getting to being that already, which is pretty incredible. The worst moment, I normally do this for every show, but like, what is there? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know, I guess. No, I don't even want to pick one. I don't know. You won with 51 points. I don't think I need to pick a worst moment. Okay. It didn't count, but it would have been a really sick block. And honestly, I originally had this listed as would have been the block of the game if it did count, but then Flory happened and I wasn't able to say that. But that KJ Adams block, that was clean, man. That was a good block. And that would have been a really good one as well. The I love you of the game, that goes to Bill Self because Bill Self gets a technical. Maybe that's the worst moment of the game. Bill Self getting a technical early on. And they showed him on the screen afterwards after he got the technical, and he mouthed something to the official that was like, blank you. And I think we can only assume the part of the blank was him saying, I love. He was saying, I love you to the ref. So that one goes to Bill Self. I'm not sure what else he would have said in that moment. Why is this the game plan award? You know, the full game plan, great. But why, if you remember at the end of the West Virginia game, KU goes down to KJ Adams to try to take like a fadeaway jump shot at the end of the game to try to win the game against West Virginia. At the end of their first half play was another baseball pass from Hunter to try to get a one-on-one for KJ Adams, what looked similar that he was going to have like a fadeaway jump shot. Why is that part of the game plan? I don't know. But yeah, maybe that's also the worst part of the game. I don't know. Offensive MVP. That goes to Hunter Dickinson. 27 points in 23 minutes on 12 of 17 shooting. Remarkable. He also had 4 offensive rebounds. So adding on that end of things, he had an assist as well. He was a plus 29 in the game overall, which we'll get to our plus minus king of the game here, which I can go more into Hunter. He was outstanding in this game, but yeah, I think you know it, and it was pretty obvious. So the plus minus king of the game, you might be thinking, okay, well, yeah, Hunter Dickinson. He was plus 29. Floribadunga was up there. He was plus 24, plus 28 from Rylan Griffin, plus 33 from KJ Adams, which was second. The winner of the plus minus award was Shaquille Moore, plus 35. So in a game where he's not necessarily going to fill up the stat sheet, doing some winning things for you, providing another good defender out there. And obviously KU's defense was really good against UCF. So I found that very interesting. And then the defensive MVP, I mean, it has to go to Floribadunga, right? I mean, I guess if you really wanted to, like, you could argue KJ Adams because you look at UCF and everybody for UCF really struggled. But Keyshawn Hall, who was like their leading scorer, went 4 of 17 from the floor, and KJ was his primary defender. And I think KJ did really good there. Plus, KJ had 5 defensive rebounds. He had 2 blocks himself and what could have easily been a third, but it is Flory. Flory was your defensive MVP. He had 6 blocks. He just changed the way the game was played on that end of the court. And so, yeah, Floribadunga wins defensive MVP. And then Sweetest Stroke Award, that goes to Rylan Griffin. 4 for 4 from 3. The shot looked about as pure as it has all season long. Hopefully that's a sign of good things to come for Rylan Griffin and where, you know, his playing time and opportunities and impact on the team goes. All right, what's next for KU? We'll get to that on the other side. This is Locked On Jayhawks. And this episode is brought to you by Game Time, where you can get tickets to comedy events. You can get it to the college football playoff, right? With the new 12-team college football playoff, incredible experiences that are going on that are bringing fans together like never before. And I'm already thinking about the semifinal games that they're probably going to be pretty sweet. Like if you're a fan of one of those teams, boom. If you just happen to be in the area, boom, probably be a fun thing to go to. So Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that can make getting tickets to that or whatever you're looking for even easier. It filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. I love Game Time myself. I pull it up. I see the seat views on things. It's really helpful. Especially I just bought some tickets to a comedy event and like I had no idea what it was going to look like, but boom, with Game Time, I could take a look at what the seats were going to look like. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets to Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, finishing things up, and thanks for joining us on today's episode of Locked On Jayhawks. On Tuesday, we're going to have a episode on J.J. Dunnigan, who is the class of 2026 prospect in state, supposed to be a really good player, 3-star DB who's going to be a two-way player for the Jayhawks. So we're going to get into that and maybe some transfer portal stuff too on Tuesday's episode. Wednesday, we'll get to our KU Arizona State preview. Then we'll have KU Cincinnati preview later in the week. We'll have recaps for both of those. So make sure to subscribe to the show anywhere you get your podcast here with Locked On Jayhawks. Now, what is next for KU? It is that Arizona State game. That is on Wednesday. I think it's at 7 o'clock. I for some reason thought it was at 8 o'clock, but at 8 o'clock Eastern time, apparently. So that'll be at 7 against Arizona State back in the field house. Arizona State hasn't been very good so far this season. They've been one of the worst teams in the Big 12 if you're looking at like KenPom. And I say all that, and it makes it sound like they're like, 8-5 or something like that, but they're still 10-3. It's just like they're ranked 57th on KenPom, which in the Big 12 is one of the lower ends. Now, the only teams, I guess they are more middle of the pack. That's probably overselling it, right? I guess maybe UCF is down there. I don't know, Kansas State, Colorado, Utah, Oklahoma State. So they're more middle of the pack. Still, this is going to be one that you should win if you're Kansas. This is going to be one that you're going to be favored to win. Take care of home. You have already lost one home game. Don't lose another home game for the rest of the season. So you have that. And then if you're Kansas after that, it is a big road trip at Cincinnati on Saturday, and then you're at Iowa State on Wednesday. I do like that you have some extra time kind of between those two on the road, where it's not just that quick fire turnaround of two road games where you can, I don't know, maybe it makes it a little bit tougher to get picked off twice. But I think if you go 2-1 in that stretch, I mean, if we want to throw the K-State game at home, which is the one after that, if you go 3-1 in that stretch, I think you're okay with that, right? You're at TCU after that, then home with Houston, then back home with UCF. So if we include those games, I mean, if you go, 7 games? If you go 5-2, I think that's okay. If you go 6-1, you're going to feel really good about where you are at that point in time. That'll do it for this episode of Locked On Jayhawks. You can find our show anywhere you get your podcast, including on our YouTube page. Like I said, back tomorrow to talk a little J.J. Dunnigan, KU football, transfer portal, all that sort of stuff, the fun stuff, and we'll have a KU Arizona State preview later in this week. Make sure to subscribe to the show and stay safe with the weather out there.